Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another We Can workshop. It's so great to have you joining us today. Today, we're talking about how to shine online. And if you have joined us before, you notice that we don't have a PowerPoint set up today, and that's just wild and crazy of us, I know. But we are actually going to have a bit of an interactive conversation-based workshop today with Holly-Marie Conway, who can wave from the panel. There she is right there. You can actually pin her to the top of your screen or spotlight her if you'd like to. I believe if you spotlight her or put your view a little bit differently, you can see her specifically, like big, like as large as you can. I would like go ahead, make her super large on your screen if you want, or you can just keep the current screen, which for me is sort of a grid of everyone in the room, which is always fun. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie Ramsey. I am the project manager for the We Can project, and We Can, of course, stands for Women Entrepreneurs Can, and we are led by Queen's University and funded by FedDev Ontario through the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy Ecosystem Fund. And we have been holding these workshops for a good 2.5 years now, and it's such a pleasure to see familiar faces. But I know there are always new folks in the room as well. So why don't you take a moment, even if you've been here to the 80 previous workshops, go ahead in the Zoom chat, let us know where you're connecting from, tell us the name of your business, and if you have a link, if you have the capability to add a link there, we'd love to connect with you as well, just to find out a little bit more about your business. We love these sessions to be training sessions, but also to network as well, because whether you're in the greater Kingston region or beyond, it's just fun to connect with other women, and particularly at this time of the year, and there's always opportunities to connect, even in a virtual sense. While you're taking a moment to connect in the Zoom chat, I'll mention that I am connecting to this workshop from the Bay of Quinte region, and this of course is the traditional territory of the Huron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And so it is an absolute honor and privilege of mine to live, work, and play here on these ancestral lands with my family in this area. And of course, today to bring this online workshop to you from this unceded territory. So thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure. Thank you for those of you who are starting to connect in the Zoom chat. If you're just joining us, we have enabled the live transcription. So if that is helpful to you, you can make use of that. As well, we are going to have no PowerPoint today. So if you're wondering where it is, it's not missing. It's not supposed to be here today. We're actually going to be talking a lot about, of course, this idea of, presenting and speaking online. And so Holly-Marie is going to take it away in just a moment and make this a little bit more of an interactive, informal type of a workshop. I know you're going to love the content she has in store. So thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. And Holly-Marie, I'll hand you the virtual microphone.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And it's wonderful to see all your faces. And as we said, this is a PowerPoint free presentation. Also, we're going to have 3 Q&As. Oh my God, what am I doing? Trust me, I do know what I'm doing. I started in public speaking when I was 9 years old, and I'm a giant nerd for it. So I just keep amassing all the knowledge for it. And the big thing that I understand, it doesn't matter what age or background or experience, everyone gets anxious being online and speaking. And we're talking about speaking online. So there's double the anxiety. So as we know, the pandemic kind of shut the world down, but it opened it up online, right? There's virtual. And even as we return to a lot of in-person events, virtual events will not go away. And a lot of them are moving hybrid so that we can remove some barriers. But also when we're speaking online, there already comes up some barriers because we're going to a screen. Raise your hand or put a little emoji if you've gone to webinars or conferences online and it's kind of a sea of black squares. Yeah. How many of us are guilty of being that black square sometimes? Sometimes we don't want to go on. And here's the thing is that you can appear on any time, and I'm going to help you with that. What you need to know is your AVF, and it's audio, visual, and follow-up. And I put that in order of priority And after each section, we will have a Q&A. Please note that when you ask questions, I may need you to repeat yourself or type it in because I do have a hearing disability. And that's one of the big reasons why we had our closed captioning enabled first thing. I want clear communication. I want to understand your concerns. And because we are an intimate group, we can get into that and I can give you specific answers. Now, does anyone know why our audio is much more important than our visual? Paula, go ahead.
Audio, you get context. Context, emotions, feelings, all those different things that you don't necessarily get with the written word.
Yep, that's a big one. The other thing is that once you have bad audio, people click off. Simple as that. You can have an amazing presentation. You can have the best PowerPoint in the world, which PowerPoint is an advanced skill. And if they can't hear you, if they can't understand you, they're clicking off. So let's take a look at the first thing on, I have a very special checklist that I make for clients, as we see. And after the presentation, you can reach out to me. Carrie's going to put my contact information for you guys, and you'll be able to get that from me. So if someone went to you and said, what is the name of the speaker in your computer? What is the name of the microphone in your computer? Would you know that answer? Probably not. I've had to learn. How many of you have logged into an event and we've had to repeat, you're on mute, you're on mute, you're on mute. And the whole thing is that whenever you log into different systems, even Zoom, they'll start to look into your system and they'll grab whatever they think the sound and the audio is. And sometimes it's not what it's meant to be. That's why I go through to my clients and I say, do you know what to do? Because you have to be able to troubleshoot. If you went in and you saw they can't hear you, they can't get anything, so you need to know what it is. And sorry, we'll take that down. You need to know the names of it, because even though I've used Zoom probably 1,001 times right now, the other day I clicked in and all of a sudden I couldn't hear anything, even though I had everything put in. And it had decided that it was going to play, my speakers were running through my microphone, which we know that's not true. But there are gremlins on our machines and you need to be able to go down and look and click on, because if anyone went down and you were on mute, go down to where the mute is. And you see that bottom left hand and you see those little arrows. You should get familiar with those arrows and see, because it goes select a microphone, select a speaker, test. All these things should be part of your regular routine anytime you go online, whether you're an attendee, whether you're a host, or whether you're speaking, because you never know whenever you're going to be asked to speak. And it's always awkward, isn't it, when they say, oh, wait, I got to unmute you. We got to get you on camera doing things back and forth. Well, how great is it if you already knew how to do that, or you already knew how to flip things over? That's why in the checklist, it says your internal system, or external, because I always recommend that you need two sources for everything. Two sources for audio, whether it's you're speaking or for the hearing part. And that's why whenever I go through, I always, on meetings, I connect a big old microphone. Now, you don't need to do that. That one cost me about $200 from Staples. It's a blue Yeti. If you listen to a lot of podcasts, it is kind of a frequent star in that world. It is a great mid-range one, and it's easily available. Also, you could always just go with a $10 little mic. If you're starting out different things, you want to do more on social media, have an external mic, because then you can control where the sound is going through and making sure that there are no interruptions, nothing's around it. That's the other thing. How many of you have products that you make within your own home or within a space that you've rented, right? Paula does. Vala does. Candy, and that you want to be doing more, even if it's not in a traditional meeting, but you're doing a TikTok, you're doing a reel, you want to have external audio because your laptop was only meant to be a laptop. It had these things included with it. It had the webcam, it had the speakers, it has everything. It has, you know, that laundry list of features that most of us don't pay attention to, let's be honest. But if you're buying a microphone, its number one job is to be a microphone. If you're buying a webcam, I have one on here, its main job is to be a webcam. And you need to know the names of it. Imagine it going into an event and you're talking to someone, the first thing you find out is their name, isn't it? And you use that name. If you met someone and then later in the conversation, you needed to find them again, you'll find them. And that's the same thing for tech. You need to know the names of your tools because they're going to be your friends, right? How many of us are solopreneurs? We get a little help here and there. This is the way to help yourself. It's another checklist. It's so that you don't have to think whenever you go in. And the biggest thing I can tell you is that get these externals. I know that whenever I take off my webcam, it is horrible, horrible. I'm already pale. You take a look and everything. If I did not have my webcam, and my lighting, things would be infinitely worse. If I didn't have my microphone, people would not be hearing me as clearly. And they come for that, specifically because I am a speaking coach. Can you imagine if I showed up and it was all garble, garble, garble? I would lose my credibility right away. And maybe people are listening whenever you're doing demos. And as we know, you have some product makers. Maybe they're listening for allergens or a specific ingredient they've been looking for, or they just want to know more about products. And that, as I can see, it's either all women or 90% women. We tend to want to know what's in our products, what's in our services. Am I right? Get some big. So people want to hear you. That's the biggest thing, is that if you've been asked to speak, if you've been asked to attend, if you've been asked to participate, people want to hear you. They're here to listen to you, whether it's for 1 minute or 1 hour. They want to hear you. This space is for you if you've been asked to step up. And I ask that, even though many of us have anxiety about it, is that you never waste an opportunity to speak. So how many of you have external microphones? Okay, we got a few, and that excellent. I applaud you. You're already ahead of the curve. And that, the other thing is that how many of you live in rural areas that maybe don't have the best internet? Yeah. So Canada is a vast country, and I've lived all across it, including isolated places and northern places. So we know that infrastructure isn't always the best. Let's say you either live in those areas or you're traveling for a trade show or something, and you still need to go on a meeting, or you still need to go to a talk. Here's the thing, is that everything takes bandwidth. You don't need to know what specifically everything takes, but you need to be aware that everything that you do, every level of tech that you add on, it's taking the bandwidth. And if you have to sacrifice anything, sacrifice your visual. I know I talked about the black squares, but there's a reason why visual comes after audio, and that you want them to be able to hear you first. And that there's a reason why radio is still a powerful medium, is that we listen. We want, as we said, We want to hear the tone. We want to hear the context. If you happen to be traveling or living in the area, I want you to know that audio comes first, and you need to make sure that there are no distractions. So we already know that maybe we have a weaker internet, maybe we got spotty service, maybe you know it's only for a short time. Concentrate on your audio. Make sure that you have an external microphone. Make sure that the environment that you're in will not contribute. How many people have pets or children or elderly? Because caregiving is all our lives, isn't it? You need to make sure that you have a space. Currently in my little office, I do this little thing, draft keepers. They go under the doors and everything, and it's quite effective at actually buffering some sound, and you can do that too. And these are things that you can also roll away at the same time, and that we want to make sure that there's no distractions. There's also an app called Crisp that can help take out other audio distractions, and that things that you may not understand or hear, someone like me does. So my audio disability, I hear everything, but my brain thinks it's all important. How many people have friends with ADHD or they have them themselves? What would happen if they heard competing noise or something? You lose them. And that. So our audio isn't just about having the equipment to broadcast us, but also making sure that you're in a favorable environment that isn't going to distract people from hearing you. And the third point I want to bring up about the audio may surprise you, or you may go, yeah, I understand. Closed captioning or ASL. Not all hearing is hearing. I know that for myself, I rely on closed captioning. I have since I was a child, although I didn't understand it. We've had them on TVs forever. I've always had to face the teacher and read their faces. In the pandemic, I found out how much I rely on reading faces to do. Now, imagine that I'm in a loud area. I'm not understanding a single word. Now, pretend that I am every single audience member that you have. You know that you got to be clean, you got to be clear, and also your pace. Did you know that in North America, that it's generally, the vocabulary is at an 8th grade level, and 100 words a minute is about as high as we can handle. Now, of course, that's always changing because we're in a different generation now, right? I grew up in an analog world. By the time I got to college, it was digital, and we know that there's more noise happening. Well, the biggest thing that you can help yourself is, one, making sure that your audio is clear and the best that you can, and also make sure that closed caption is available, because it's not only for people that have hearing disabilities like myself. How many people can't have audio on in some areas? Like, you're watching kids, you're maybe in your production area, but you still want to participate. There's any number of reasons that you could need to have closed captioning. So whenever you think of hearing, I want you to think of closed captioning as well. And that's why in our checklist, we have that as well. So as you see, I talked about, we got our internal system. So know what your laptop calls. It's microphones and speakers, because those are two different things. Your external, I always recommend that you have an external. The backup, the third one, that's if you're a speaker. If you are someone who is kind of a star of the event, make sure you have that. The fourth, we have, make sure it's subtitles, closed captioning, especially also if you're going to a general audience or an international audience, because multilingual words get messed up on our heads. And the fifth, your environment. Are you in the best place for you to be recording, for you to be broadcasting. And this is can be for just traditional webinars, or is it the TikToks, the Reels, everything. All this is kind of plug and play. Everything that I teach is so that you can use skills in any environment where you be speaking. And this is where we have our first Q&A. So it's all going to be about audio. Don't worry, visual and follow-up are going to continue. And the Q&As go as long as you guys have questions.
So if anyone wants to unmute themselves, you can ask the question, or you can put it into the Zoom chat. Go ahead, Paula, you have your hand up.
Another thing I was going to say is for audio is making sure that you have in your spaces not a lot. Let me try that one again. Not a lot of hard surfaces, because you're going to get an echo or a bounce.
Mm-hmm.
Closed closets work well, actually.
There we go.
Yep. Small closed closets work well.
That's a really good point, Paula. I have a podcast and I'm in this office with hardwood floors and the walls are almost bare. And it has been so difficult. Like I have blankets that I have to spread on the ground, even for it to sound a little bit better. But yeah, that was one of my questions actually, was the bounce off of these. And I don't know if there's any other suggestions people have. Yeah, the clothes closet, I agree. I don't have a big enough clothes closet. Where are you? You guys have walk-in closets. But yeah.
It doesn't have to be big. You can get that intimate, say intimate from.
Yeah. Sarah, our Chas has said in the chat, this idea of the egg cartons, and I'm actually going to ask my dad to build me one because I don't have the time, but I'm going to get him to build me one. But yes, actually, anyone else have experience?
Yeah,
something nice is.
You can get acoustic foam off Amazon as long as you know where your reflections are coming from. Like me being a musician, like I don't actually have any on my walls, and I should, but I have it all up there and I've had them for like a year, but you can get them pretty cheap off of Amazon.
Yeah. And if you can't find that, just to start with, to find out if it will help, is the egg carton mattress toppers. Those will work not as well. But if you have a lot of space and you're trying to figure out, that would be a good way to start and then replace with the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I know some of you, like Sheila, you record, I'm assuming, online courses, or at least teach online courses, and push record on many of them. And even this quality, today, if you listen back to my voice, it might be a little more reverb or echoey than someone else who might be on here. Okay. Anyone else have a question with regards to the letter A, which of course at this point is audio? Before we head any further, let me just check the, so there's some chat going on in there as well. Sheila, she says she taped an entire course in her clothes closet. Yeah.
We make do. You don't need a professional studio to start in this stuff. We live life out loud. We live life in our communities, whether it's small or large. Commerce is everywhere, and more people want to hear from you. It's kind of another consequence of the Dragon's Den effect, which is we see pitch competitions everywhere. It seems to be the standard, but now it's bled into people want to hear your story. They want to see you actively making or interacting. It's all over. I really love how many people are talking about closed captioning, and that makes me very happy, because it should be the norm and it's not. So we keep moving forward. I know that these webinars are professionally closed captioned and edited by a local area business, which makes me extremely happy. So it says that Lynn has raised her hand.
Hi.
Hey, Lynn.
Yes. I completely agree with the closed captioning. And Sandy commented that, there you are, Sandy. Yep. Kind of a similar experience by the closed captioning adding depth. And it's a new experience that now that I use closed captioning on TV, when I go to someone else's house, I'm like, can you put the closed captions on for me? Because it helps.
Comprehension, right? And that just because someone can speak quickly doesn't mean that they are understood quickly.
Yes, and the other part about the audio, I host a podcast, and it's been a few years since I've recorded, but the recordings that I did were on my cell phone, just walking around, because as you were saying, it's important to tell a story, and it's important to have good audio, but I think the number one thing is to get it out there, to just do it, and then tweak it best possible and evolve.
Yep.
So, you know, yes, someone can host a podcast just with their cell phone. Having the microphones, I think, help, but it gets a job done. So
yeah, you have to start somewhere, and it's to keep growing, keep trying, keep going. As I said, you don't need big, expensive equipment, but I make sure that people know that you can evolve.
Holly-Marie, Christine has asked a question in the chat, which you might get to, because I know visual is what you're coming to next.
Yeah.
Is a blurred background okay? And I see, Holly-Marie, you have a blurred background.
Yeah.
She says, yeah, she says yours looks good. So I am wondering, you can host, oh, and she's saying, can you host a podcast on your cell phone?
Why not?
Yes, Christine, I'll drop the link into one of the, and Lynn also, if you want to drop a link. I use anchor.fm, but I'm not sure, Lynn, if that's what you use. We can drop you a link. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
I did, just on that real quick. I started my podcast in 2015, and I went from 2015 to 2018. And then I've taken this break, and I'm coming back, and you're the second person to mention Anchor. In the past, I used a whole audio program. It was complicated. I put in my own music, but I've heard that Anchor is really friendly for editing. Do you have anything to say about Anchor?
Yeah, so I've recorded 100 episodes almost now using Anchor. Actually, I recorded on Audacity, I'll be honest, but I upload it through Anchor. So the combination of those two tools is what I use. But I know people who use Anchor on their phone and record a whole podcast in just the way that you've talked about. So you can do it for absolutely free. Now, Holly-Marie talked about microphones. I actually use my Yeti Nano mic for it. But honestly, after 100 episodes, I'm still trying to get better, because it's not where I want it to be. Like, I did an interview the other day and I forgot to put the blankets down on my hardwood floor. So guess what? It sounded echoey. But I love what you said, Lynn. Just do it. We have to stop waiting for the perfection and for us to be technical engineers. And I know Holly-Marie is going to talk more about that as we go. So sorry, you had, there's a question that we asked, and the question was about the blurry background. Are you going to cover?
That's coming up.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to leave the land of audio. You can always ask questions. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram. My link tree will be put in there again at the end, especially if you want that checklist. I find checklists alleviate anxiety, because they're like, I have something to go through. It's that little dopamine whenever you cross something off, right? So yes, visual. Everyone's like, I need the best background, I need to do the different things. They talk about, is it professional to have a virtual background, this, that? It depends. It really depends. The big thing is that you have some kind of visual. So we see the black squares, but some black squares are different than others. Can anyone tell me what they see that is different in some black squares? I'm
going to go to a black square right now and just show you mine, but go ahead.
So, and Carrie did it. When you're not on camera, there's a picture. And it doesn't matter what kind of infrastructure, and that if you can get online, you're allowed to put up a picture, and you should, because it's a lot more friendly than that sea of faces. It's so people can reach you. That how many people have picked up business, like as we said earlier, this is also a place to network. Some people, maybe they're not that interested in speaking, and I'm not insulted. It scares a lot of people, but they come because it's a camaraderie and it's a webinar, and they always know that I'm going to drop my business in the chat and everything, but they need to be able to find you. And that, because as you see, most of it's one word names. There's no picture. I don't know what they do. Maybe they mentioned it and then the chat goes flying by, right? Or they didn't put in a link, or any number of reasons. It just helps people find you, and also helps people connect. So if you've ever seen a news report and they are talking with an expert, but they can't have them on camera, they put up a picture, don't they? And they have their proper name and their title. I know for me, I make sure I have my full name. I am a solopreneur and I offer services, and it's kind of under my name. I know my business is Strength Through Speaking, but a lot of people find me specifically through my full name. So I make sure that information is up there. And it's a thing that we want to connect with people. We start with the voice and we go with the visuals. It also goes back to, maybe you're in areas that you can't be on camera. You still need something to help you connect. So I want to tell Christine, Monica, Angie, and Lynn that you are doing the right things by making sure that your profile has an up-to-date photo of you, so that people know who you are. And I'm sending a heart right back to you, Monica, and that people want to know you. It doesn't matter if you're self-conscious. I know that I am highly self-conscious about my appearance, even though I can be on a stage of hundreds of people. I have won competitions and I didn't want my picture taken. And I think that's a societal thing, is that we've been told that unless your pictures look perfect, you shouldn't use them. Let's throw that out. Let's just be humans together. As you see, I'm a very pale woman. I have some dark features, and I've learned of how I appear on camera. I don't need to be perfect, but I still need to be less of a ghost. This is actually an improvement. If you see any of my photos, if you see me in real life, I am this pale. I am almost brilliant at times, but I've learned to use it. And I learned that I should be wearing darker clothing. I should make sure that my face is seen. I make sure my hair is done in a certain way. And it's not fancy, but it's these little rituals that say that I am ready to face the world. So even before, I know the big thing about the virtual is the backgrounds, but in visual, we have to start with being humans first and making sure that we are interacting. So I noticed with the majority of the people on camera, you're doing things right with face and the visual. I can see your face, but a big thing I want people to do is make sure that they're centered. So take a look at how I am, take a look at where my head is, take a look at the space. Negative space is very important. So we want to make sure that I'm not too high, I'm not kind of going into the frame or too low. Before we started letting people in, Carrie and I, we made sure that my computer was at an appropriate level. We had me framed within it. And this doesn't happen by accident. I specifically use a stand. So for a very long time, I would use books. And that you can just start with that. People, you do things, furniture, wherever you are, wherever you want to broadcast, make sure it's stable. So I know we're like, no, I'll just put the phone here, the computer here. Je m'excuse. You need to upgrade it. The stand probably cost me $15 and it's made all the difference. Also, if you're going to be sitting versus standing, you have to make sure you know what your area is as well. I know my area for when I'm sitting and just teaching. When I teach, I tend to sit because it makes me a lot more approachable. I'm less threatening. I'm not doing a big thing. And I do that specifically because speaking is with a lot of anxiety. If I was teaching something else, my first career was in aerospace. If I wanted to do a webinar, maybe I was talking about calipers, or I was demonstrating some sheet metal work, I would make sure that I'm standing and I have my tools and making sure that everything's in frame. For that, anytime I do anything standing, I do a thing that some people that maybe you've been in acting classes or drama, I mark out my spots. So actors, they have marks. I have my tape square. I am an interesting lady with multiple languages in my head. So I also speak with my hands a lot. I am very active whenever I'm not doing a strip down session like this. So I know that I have to make sure that I stay within my box. It's a very good box. I know we're always saying think outside the box. For this one, I want you to think inside the box and you have two different boxes. You have your sitting box, which is making sure that you stay in your frame, and you have your standing box. So if you were demonstrating something, which is very popular in social media with businesses or any type of hobby or anything, they want to see things going on, and you have to make sure that, you know, things aren't going out of frame. You're not losing people on that, because if you're going to have visual, they need to make sure that you are seeing all the visual. How many of you have gone to a video and they're showing something and then it's cut off? And I mean that frame, I mean that visually, I don't mean the video just stopped, although that would be incredibly annoying too, right? People, if you're gonna show people something, show all of it. Don't be hiding it. Don't hide yourself, okay? Because what I see here today is a lot of beautiful faces that I'm really privileged to see. And I'm glad that you're on camera, and I'm glad that you're interacting with me, because everyone thinks, no, I can only be on camera if I speak, if I'm being loud. Well, that's not the truth. There's no one way to be a speaker. There's no one way to be a human. And I'm just really glad that you have chosen to speak during question period or appear on camera during the entire webinar. It helps us open up and also helps others connect with you as well. Now, the next big thing, everyone asks about it, backgrounds. I always get asked, what's the best background? Okay, it depends. And I know you guys hate that answer. Everyone hates it, but it's the truth. The best for quality will always be a real background. If you have a dedicated space that meets the needs, it's the best one. Sometimes we need a very plain background, like Sheila. She is well framed. There's nothing distracting. If she was in a meeting, it's perfect. Okay, we have our generic one. Then maybe we want to show that we are working, we're active. We have Sandy. Sandy is a web designer, and we know exactly that this is her workspace and everything. And it brings us into her world, and that she has everything so framed. It's not too cluttered. It's enough to say, hey, I'm a human, and maybe there's cats involved too. And I just say that because I know Sandy. But it's not distracting, but it's humanizing. The other thing is, a few of us have blurry backgrounds. One of the great things for Zoom, and I know most of us use Zoom, is that it's very easy to use the blurred background, and it means that you can go anywhere, whether you're in a hotel or in your home, or you've had to move. I specifically do this webinar from my bedroom to show you that you can appear anywhere. So I'm going to take off my blurred background so that you can see. I'm in my bedroom. You did not know that beforehand, and that it could have been any blurry thing. We don't always have the space, right? Some people are doing podcasts in closets. Some people are teaching webinars from bedrooms. You can speak from anywhere. You literally can, whether it's just you're speaking or you're speaking and appearing. You can do it anywhere. Blur is a really good option, but I need you to, who here speaks with their hands? I'm being a bit more relaxed today because it's a strip down session, but yes, kind of noticed something. Blur, it's censoring my T. That's the other thing you need to worry about with virtual backgrounds and the blurred backgrounds. So you have to be aware that if you're going to be demonstrating anything, if you need to show anything, I'll show you something, and that you need to make sure that you are showing it appropriately. So if I wanted to show you a pin that I wear out to let people know that I have issues with my hearing, I can't just do this. I got to make sure that it gets right up. It's got to be at the right angle. See, it's still trying to censor it, right? So you have to be aware that this happens whenever you use virtual backgrounds. Also, it can be very appropriate to use virtual backgrounds if it comes specifically from the organization. So in the last month, I taught at 2 Toastmasters districts. So Toastmasters is an international organization that focuses on public speaking and leadership skills. And this is what they have for their members. So it is in their colors, it has their logo, it is specifically made for Zoom and other platforms, and it will interfere. You will, however, notice, even though it's great, it's professional, again, we still have the issues in that. So take a look. That's one of the things, because it's also using more bandwidth as well. So you have to make sure that whenever you're choosing a background, is at their limitations. The blur is great, the virtual is great, but make sure that if you're demonstrating and stuff, there's going to be issues with it. You are allowed to use these. Just don't get cheesy with it. Remember when business cards came out and then you could do things more than the usual just typeface? And some people were like, I need little graphics and everything. It's not always appropriate. A lot of times it isn't. You just need to be able to use it properly. And I noticed we have a question.
Yeah, there's a couple questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to address the first one, which I think someone asked a few minutes ago. So let me go back up.
Yeah, I started to notice more questions. So I was, let's get to the Q&A for,
You might have already answered this, but how close should you be to the camera? Sometimes people are so close it's frightening, or sometimes they look very tiny and far away. You might have already addressed that, but do you want to just mention that?
You have to find your spot. So just like we mark things out for whenever you're standing, you need to figure that out for your sitting position as well. How far? It depends on your system. So when I sit, sometimes I have a social Zoom that I do every 2 months versus something like this. I definitely don't pull out all the tricks for like sitting with my college friends, but for this, I make sure you have to find it out for yourself. So, and there's a different spot each time because sometimes I use my stand and sometimes I don't. And you just have to figure it out and then kind of mark it, make the notes for yourself. That's why the checklist is there. And also you can do that for different rooms or different places, whether you're doing it in your production area, your home office, maybe your kitchen you're broadcasting from. You know, in this room, I need these 3 books. I need to tilt my kit. I need to tilt my screen forward. The answer is you have to figure it out and you have to mark it down because everyone has different equipment as well, right? I have a larger screen to help me see. Not everyone has that. Other people, you have smartphones and they're just putting them in the little tripods. I highly recommend that if you are using your phone for stuff, invest in a little kind of smartphone tripod and it will save you everything because you don't want to like put everything precariously and you're doing well, you're having a great take and it falls over.
So true.
And if you're doing that, like you can mark with tape somewhere. It's your own house. It's your own thing. You don't need to mark it properly. Just make notes to yourself in that and do it for every place that you go. I know I have 2 for just this room. One is for sitting and one's for standing so that it saves me every time that I can just wake up and just put this on. And I just know. So yeah, you have to work it out. You have to figure out height and angle and things change from when I use my laptop's webcam versus my external one. That's the other thing.
Thank you for that, Holly-Marie. Paula has a question, and then I think there's one more in the chat that I'll go to.
Yay.
Also, it was 2 things. I'm in my kitchen, but for me, people, I don't know, it's just part of my whole brand of anyways. But I realized once I hung my gallery wall on the other side of the island, I had to switch to this side because what hangs there is not everyone's taste.
Yeah. You have to
And
mention that.
also with being a graphic designer, I would caution people on what's in your background. Is it a trademark thing? Because you don't know, like with YouTube and things like that, if there is content, like you have music in the background, like I do, because I need it because I'm ADHD, so I can stay focused on one thing, is to make sure that stuff's off, because you will get dinged if you put it to another channel.
Yeah.
Good
They'll
point.
be having Disney backgrounds, anyone, they will shut you down.
Oh yes. And even if it sounds like a Disney music in the background, if you're using any context of music,
Ooh.
yeah, oh, yeah. They
Yeah.
will, because they actually, Disney did, because people talk about this might frustrating point is that somebody said, oh, it's big companies say, well, I'm based in Kingston. There's a little village called Odessa that's like a 20-minute drive. Disney went after a person that is in Odessa because he did a truck tomater, the little tow truck. He did not make any money, and it was for charity, but they squashed it. They made him have it. They will.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is the law. It is the law.
That's
It's
why
a
we
lot,
start
and
with plain.
Yeah, and it's like, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
We start
Sorry,
with
went
plain
on a tangent, but
Question. Valid. Sorry, we're gonna circle right back. Sheila's question initially was how much space, like the spacing on the screen.
The rule of nines.
What is it?
The rule of nines. So if anyone has taken photography or been interested in, which a lot of people do, I didn't, but I learned. And it's the rule of nines. So imagine putting yourself 9 squares on your computer and you want your face in that center one. And it also means that's why you want space in between. There's something about it that the human brain and I just really respond to, is having you at the center, at the focal. And it's basically divide your screen into 9 equal squares. So whoop, whoop. And then you are in. I'm not voguing, but I am showing you that I am in that area. It doesn't have to be exact, but that's how you're going to help yourself. You have a little bit of structure, and then you let the rest of you fly out.
That's a great point. I like that, the rule of nines.
may I add something, Carrie?
Yes.
As you'll notice with my graphics, I'm in a third, because if you're doing a graphic, give space that it can be read. You just have to remember where to put your camera, which I never do. Sorry.
Yeah, and Sandy just mentioned the rule of thirds just there in the chat as well. Yeah, and so Paula has that different background, of course, which is the background, which is not blurred, but her logo screen. And I think, there might be others. You just showed us an example. I want to share what I've got behind me, because one of my clients shared this idea with me and I jumped on it, because everyone asks me, is that your backyard? Is that your patio? So this is a big sheet of fabric that goes on my wall. And you're right, you have to be in a permanent space. But what drove me crazy was the green screen, that every time I moved, it would shift, and that drove me nuts. Just like some of you said, the blurring makes you dizzy. This is a great option. It was $50 on Amazon, and there's different scenes you can get. So you can get a bookshelf, whatever. And I just tack it up to my office wall, but you have to be in a permanent place, and you have to be like, thank you. I wish if I lived in Victoria, BC, this would be my backyard, but that would be because it's year round. But yeah, I have a window in front of me, which is the other for the lighting, which I think Holly-Marie is going to get to, and then also the background. So you just look on Amazon. I don't know what they're called. Zoom background fabric.
So it's virtual background, and I have 2. So if you're doing some things, we notice a lot on TikTok and that there's a lot of virtual screens. The best, if you're going to use a virtual screen, the best thing you can do is have the background. So I have 2. One, it's just a bunch of fabric, that green fabric. And honestly, you could probably get that at any fabric store. The other option I have attaches to my seat. So it's actually this big old circle. And as you see right in here, this helps it just go down the back of my seat and then stay in. So no matter if I move or anything, it stays with me. And I've had some fun with that, mostly with friends. But it's there for people to experiment with. I do prefer kind of when I teach, I have these little strip down sessions, because as we said, speaking's anxiety, and I make it so that it's approachable, and teaching people that you don't need all these things at the beginning, you can move on to them, but just start with just plain backgrounds, just you appearing on camera and going there. We had another question, I believe.
Did I miss any of the questions? Sorry, let me just look real quick. You're right. Okay, we talked about the rule of thirds. Did anybody else have one? You can come off of mute if I've missed your question.
We'll just put up the thing for that. Yeah, so every section has a part in the checklist. Again, going back to the audio one, you want to know what your system names everything. I know because I have an external camera and an internal one, I want to know which one it has, which name it is. The lighting, I know I am an incredibly pale lady. I know that I need to have some contrast. I can never have a plain white background because I just go right into it. If you're using natural light, you need to make sure that you know what it's like at that time of day. So you've probably planned everything, but maybe you did it at night and it's daytime. And the other thing, we talked about the photos and everything, your position, the chat system, that kind of goes back to closed caption and there's different ways for people to communicate, and people will start by writing first before speaking. So you need to make sure that. And what I get asked is, can I use props and notes? Yes. Know how to use them. You shouldn't be on notes. People hammer on it. You're allowed to use notes. Don't be reading a book, but you are allowed to have them. Those old school cue cards, they're great, especially if you're going offsite and you don't know their text system. Teleprompters can fail. PowerPoints can fail. Having your speaking notes, not the entire thing, but just notes. Go old school with it. You're allowed to use them. And that those professional speakers that you see out there, the news anchors, the politicians, everything, they have help. They have teleprompters. Some people have them in their ears. They have notes themselves, and you're allowed to use it. It's okay to have it on camera too, and that you don't need to explain where it comes from. Just let it be.
I'll just pop in. Holly-Marie and I were talking before we hit record today that I was a professor for 15 years, and I mean, you get reliant on the PowerPoint, right? But I always had a printout of it just in case, and inevitably there was power failures, or not power failures, but just internet failures, right? And you couldn't access your laptop. So I mean, as speakers, always have some version of it printed out, or I mean, hey, if it's in your head, that's great too, but sometimes we draw a blank.
Paula, go ahead.
I've also learned too with notes is to print them out in a larger font.
Yes.
So you're not squinting.
Yes.
And I know on TV shows, there'll be the teleprompters, but there's still, like, when there's changes, there's people running around Bristol board writing big notes. And you can even do that on your wall.
Yeah.
Like put it up on your wall in front of your, like behind your camera. So if you're not sure, so in that way you're looking straight ahead and you're reading, but you're not looking down.
Yeah. That's the big thing, is that you need to be able to interact and do different things. I use the natural light behind. I moved around my office. I moved around my bedroom so that I could use it. I think winter was a little tough on me. There's also artificial light. So if I'm doing things at night, I literally got this. A ring light needs to be your friend. And I can't tell you how much lighting you need because everyone has different skin tones and colors. Okay. What I need for lighting versus Carrie versus one of my friends, she's black, very black. Our lighting needs are going to be different. It's easier when it's just one person on camera because then you just need the white balance for one. Do know that if you're going to be having people on camera with you, you have to make sure that they're also well lit as well, and you're going to have different skin tones. Also using artificial light, you can have shadows. So if you have one ring light coming from this side, have another one. They're quite cheap. I've seen them. I got $15 from Staples. Someone was like $40 Costco. If you're a Costco person, go ahead. But if you're going to get one, get two. It will save you in the long run because it will not distract people from the like what's on their face.
I think the one other question was around how do you upload the profile picture? And then I think somebody else did about how you blur the background. So just go, if you Google the help section of Zoom, it will tell you exactly how to change your background, how to blur your background, and finally how to change your profile settings, including your name, but also how to upload a photo. So I did put a link in there. Hopefully that's helpful.
That's literally what I was going to do because we don't want to eat into the other time. So with your visual again.
Holly-Marie, there's just one quick question from Sandy. She says, I have a ring light and it came with a white cover and an orange cover. Do you know the difference? Is there a situation where one is better or is it based on skin tone?
It's based on skin tone. And that it's based on whatever is going, because again, something for me versus someone else is going to be different. And that it's the same thing like makeup, right? Some people, they can use that green corrector. Some people need the red. There's a lot of tones and stuff. Make friends with a photographer. That's what I say. I'm a speaking coach. I help with anxiety. I help with you saying things, getting it out, right? Because we get stuck. Yeah, no, make friends with a photographer on that one if you really want to know. And yes, the Zoom help, that's the best one to teach you. That's the thing for Carrie in the chat. Carrie's just too popular. So yeah. Do we have any more on visual before we move along to follow up? Okay. So the big thing is you've gone to the meeting, you've talked maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. People are interested in you. We're all entrepreneurs. We're always looking for business, right? Whether or not the person in the webinars are going to purchase from you, they may send along your info. So are you sending them to the right place? And one thing I use, and let's make sure it's up, perfect. Linktree or link in bio. How many people here are reeling that? And it's like link in bio, or it's even typed out on stuff. It allows to have all the links that you want in one place. I know that, you know, before it was exchanging emails, which is still good, but I prefer to have people reach out to me either through LinkedIn or Instagram. So I make sure that people know that and they can put in, not everyone's on LinkedIn and not everyone's on Instagram. So I have two different kind of audiences. And then for anyone who is not on any of it, I got my website, yay, and everything. But do people know we have, you know, well, I do have to update this. I'm a little ashamed of not having an up-to-date thing, but I recently had eye surgery. So before, my glasses were quite kind of the brand until, but if we had shot this before my surgery, you have been like, yep, that's Holly-Marie. I recognize her. You need to be recognizable. I know I've seen some people that they've taken pictures from their younger years, and there's nothing wrong with maybe having an older picture, but when it looks like a completely different person, or it looks like your daughter or granddaughter, you need to show you, okay? Even if you're feeling self-conscious, you need to show you. If you are behind a brand, you need to make sure that your logo is out there. I see, you know, Lynn, she has, for hers, she has a logo right there. Even though I can't read all of it, I know that when I see it, I'm like, no, I know Lynn, she was in that webinar and everything. You need to be able to know how to go for it. Also, how do you want people to contact you? that's the big reason I use the link tree now, because then I can just dump it. And my big ones are, as I said, I prefer people contacting me through LinkedIn or Instagram. And I find for me that covers a lot of the social media, because I get some people, they're a little more in the corporate world, startups, everything. They really like LinkedIn. Other ones, homegrown businesses, a lot of growing brands, that they like Instagram. And that's where I want to be. I don't want to be on Facebook, because I prefer that to be personal. I know a lot of people are into it, but I also took a look at how I was reaching people and my ideal client, because you should have an ideal client. That goes back to the business plan days, right? I don't want Facebook clients. I want Instagram clients and I want LinkedIn clients. So I have specifically made sure that it's in there. And if you took a look, I put in order how I want people to find me. I created a funnel, right? And that most of the time people go for the first button. And anyone who doesn't have LinkedIn or doesn't want to get into it, well, they have other options. Then we have the website, which is really awesome. And then we have the Instagram, because people are like, okay, that's cool. And then the last one I have is LinkedIn for my business. It's not as popular, but I have it there because some people, they want to make sure that your business has a online presence, not just yourself. So I make sure that I have that. Control how people can reach you. And you can do that. You don't want people, calling your personal cell phone or maybe some personal accounts. This is how you do it. You use Linktree, you use LinkedIn bio. If there's a couple of things, if you don't have any of those, write out the links and have it in Notepad. Every computer has Notepad, and you just cut and paste for when you need it. And that you choose how people can reach you and broadcast that. And that's how you're going to do. That's how you're going to do well. And that if you ever play golf, it's all about the follow through. And in this case, it's going to be about the follow up. And that one of the first things that Carrie does at any webinar, which they're pretty great, is she asks people to drop a link in the chat. And that because people want to follow up. And that's why it's there. Even though it's something that does not happen during your speaking time or your attendance time, it's still incredibly important. And that's why I include it. I know that's a shorter section, but it is quite important, and I consider it the cherry on top. Do we have questions about follow-up or anything? Because now we are at the end. And as I said, it's more of a strip sound session. It's more of a conversational style today.
We do have some questions. So Rita,
Yes.
You can go first, and then we'll follow up with the Zoom chat.
You're on mute, honey.
There you go.
I pressed it like 4 times. Okay.
Gremlins.
I'm wondering about how much you should be on screen live action versus maybe a profile picture versus just a regular old phone call. Because I come from a time when people didn't really see what you look like. I built my business on, across North America, talking to people, mostly men, about work. And when they finally had a website in the 90s, they saw my picture, they started getting nervous.
Aww.
Like they shouldn't be talking to me because of their wives or something. People in the Midwest, they don't have the same sort of casual approach to everything.
It's a cultural difference, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it goes back to, it depends. What do you want out of it? Now, I also, as I said before, I started in an analog world and to digital. Even in my 20s, I kept calling friends and people. It made it easier because I also lived in some isolated areas. You can use all of them. We have to stop thinking that there's only one way to communicate, or there's like the best way. It's different every day, and that not people in a traditional office, they still have landlines. I had a nonprofit job, calling me on the phone and everything, and that's fine. And that, because again, audio is the number one, and I made sure I had a special headset at work so I could specifically hear everything that people had. You can do that. You can be on camera. It just matter is, ask yourself, is this benefiting me and my business?
Thank you. Lynn, is it to follow up to the question in the Zoom chat? Oh, yeah.
Elin.
Well, I had two. One is related to what Rita was saying about when to appear and when to go off. And that's one thing for me. I'm standing.
Yep.
And my brain works best when I'm in motion. So a lot of times, like when you were speaking, Holly, I was kind of working a kink out and I'm moving around.
Hey.
I feel like if I'm gonna do that, it's distracting to be on camera, and that when I'm doing my little stretches and stuff to turn off the camera, and I'm still engaged. I do the chat thread, I do the reactions, but I feel like it's a distraction. So what are your thoughts on turning off the camera in that situation?
I think that's appropriate. That's you being polite. Sometimes we have, again, pets, children, elderly, spouses, everyone come into frame. If it's something that's going to take you out of that moment, yes, it would be appropriate to turn off your camera. I know sometimes I needed a yawn, or I needed to run to the bathroom or something. I didn't want to have them see me run back and forth as an attendee. I try to be on camera as much as possible. I get very active in my little square and my little reactions. If you've met me before, this is a little more of a stripped down version today, because I want people to feel open. But yeah, no, it's very polite. You don't have to worry. And that again, you're a standing person, you know that. You're an active person, you know that, and you can plan around it. You don't have to be on camera 100%. I think we get wrapped up in that everything needs to be 100% all the time. No.
Yes, I agree with you, and thank you, because I weigh it, because I want to be here, I want to be interactive, but I also want to be respectful, and as you're saying, polite to the rest of the group. Having someone making a bunch of movements is a distraction, I feel. So good. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. And the other question that I did put in the chat was about saving the chat. Just the other day, somebody showed me the 3 little dots, and then I can click save chat. Yep. And that way I can save the networking information, but I've never walked the steps. Do you have any tips on saving the chat thread to reference later?
I do a lot where I just kind of cut and paste as I go, because I don't want everything. The 3 little dots that she is referencing is if you go over to the chat, the right-hand side, go down, and you know how you see to everyone? If you follow that line, there's a little paper, there's a little smiley face, and then next to that is 3 dots. And if you pull it up, it says save chat.
But I guess, where does it go? How do I access it once I click save chat?
It pops, it adds when the Zoom call ends, it will pop up. It should pop up. That's at least as the host for me, that's how it works. As soon as I shut this down, when we leave the meeting, Zoom will say, here's your Zoom, your meeting chat. And I grab it from there, usually right away. But then in my Zoom call, like log, if I forget, I can also go in. Now that's as the host. So I think that, I'm not sure, maybe it would be in your Zoom settings. Does anyone know the 100% answer to that question? But one thing I will mention that might be a caveat, and I don't know if this is true, but sometimes when you click those 3 dots, it will save the meeting chat up to that point, but it won't save the meeting, anything that's put in there afterwards.
Yeah.
So I don't know, again, if anybody I'm usually the host of these. So, oh, okay. Sheila's saying she's on a Mac. It shows up in the Zoom folder under documents. Yes. So there's a Zoom folder that as a Zoom person, you would be able to access. Like we all have an account, obviously, if we're here. So just go to your Zoom, you know, if you're a host or not, you should be able to see it there.
Thank you. And this is my first time in this group. And I have to say, it is definitely one of the very top tier of groups. Holly and Carrie, you're great speakers, and the group is engaged, and I really am having a great time. So thank you very much.
Oh, we're so excited you're here. It's awesome. That's awesome. So good to hear it.
There is a method to my madness. And that's why the beginning webinars I do, I always make sure it's a stripped down version like this, because it's a lot less intimidating and it gets more people interactive. Paula, go ahead.
Something for Lynn or anyone concerned about how their comfortableness on camera is that you can actually, if a person's watching and let's say they find something distracting about whoever they're seeing, they can bump them down. Or you can choose to, like I have it that I prefer that the faces that are live, I have it that I set up all the live faces. Yeah. Because, you know, if there's some live people over here and I can't see them, but I see some blank spots and understand respectful, it's just nice to have the live group together. So what you can do is you can drag and drop. So if there's someone, they're engaging, but maybe a little bit more engaging that you would like, just drop them down lower.
Yeah, I've now hosted a lot of these workshops, and we've had people do some odd things without taking their camera. I'm not going to mention what they are because then you'll go back and watch, because part of it's on there. And that's a part of the responsibility of the facilitator and the host, not Holly-Marie as the presenter, but me as the host, to watch what people are doing on their screens. And if it's disrespectful or questionable or shady, then I can certainly block the video or just eject them from the room, right? Thankfully, it wasn't shady. It was just someone did an odd thing that I thought was disrespectful. And so I just muted her. I took her off camera.
Sometimes you need to be off camera, and that's okay. But it's also okay to be on camera. That's my big thing. And that it's whatever is the best for your circumstances, that is what is the best for you. I know it's not the exact answer that people want. I say it depends a lot. I get into the specifics with my clients because then I can dig deep. And that's why I prefer coaching one-on-one versus group coaching, because then we can get right into what exactly someone needs. What?
Paula, you're up next.
What?
Also, I was going to say, I've run into the scenarios. You can set up 2 cameras. So that way you're not having to go back and forth. And that way you can just say pin this one video and then go for reference for this other one, depending on what you're doing. So if you sit and stand and you're engaging with and you're speaking, you can have that opportunity as well.
Yeah, definitely advanced skills though.
Oh,
it takes a lot of practice for stuff like that. I don't even use it, but I do.
Okay.
Coaching nowadays, I haven't competed in years. There gets to a point where you get enough awards and it's like, it's time to get back.
Paula's like, I'd love to see you do those 2 cameras, Paula, sometime. That would be fun. I'd love that. Rita, you're up next. We're almost wrapping up for today. I know that we're almost at time, but Rita, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it's still the question of being on camera. I find my approach is, if I go to a Zoom meeting, I think it's respectful to be on camera. Honestly, it's almost a waste of my time if I don't engage or get a conversation around something that brought me to the discussion. And I also don't like that there are people who will sit and just watch.
Well, and
does anybody else feel that that's odd?
I've learned over time, though, that there's multiple things that are happening, right? Sometimes women have small children, because especially during the virtual schooling time, or maybe they're homeschooling right now. So I have to respect that might, that is what they're doing. And so the other is that for internet connection in remote areas, there certainly isn't the bandwidth.
Oh yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Be seen and heard. So I know many of you that are on the call today are in rural areas. And so we're just happy that people show up, and whether you're listening or participating in whatever capacity. But yeah, I think it's harder for the presenter, honestly. And because today is about presenting, we can sort of talk about that. We're kind of getting meta here, right? But yeah, I think it's frustrating that way. But honestly, I've now accepted and welcomed and embraced the fact that sometimes even I'm on a black screen if I'm multitasking, but I really didn't want to miss this. Or, I mean, there's people driving in their cars, maybe even right now. And I know that there are people traveling that we certainly
I've definitely seen people driving in
on
cars
camera
on Zoom.
if they're driving. Yeah. Holly-Marie, did you want to add to that? And then over to Monica.
The number one thing is that they're showing up. And I know for some people, just showing up is hard. We start by making sure that we have the photo, and from there we go to being on camera. And from there, being on camera, we go to interacting. I don't fault anyone because a lot of people come to me with their anxiety because of what I do. So I have great empathy, but in a perfect world, I would have everyone on camera. I would have people in frame. I would have people interacting, but I understand the world's not perfect and we start one step at a time. And if someone has decided to appear on camera after a webinar with me, I consider that a huge win because I know what it takes to make that jump. I see Monica's hand. I would love to hear from Monica.
Yes, hello. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I so enjoyed this presentation. I learned a lot of things from you. I'm learning to slow down. I have a lot of this energy, so it's like I typically come out with all of this energy. So I'm learning to pause, but I walked away with some great tips. I too used to be offended with, I don't know if offended is the right words, but I went to this one talk and the gentleman was saying that when the camera is off, it's like our backs are turned on him as a presenter. But like he was saying too, sometimes we're out and about, like literally I was at work, then I jumped on my phone because I went and worked out. I was still working out while listening to this because this was so important to me.
Hey.
So I just want to thank you. And like I said, I am learning too, because I used to be like, why is their camera? Why aren't, they're not showing up? This presenter is giving all of their time and energy. But again, just I learned that not to cast, things may be going on. Like I said, I was literally working out and listening to you at the same time. Thank you.
Awesome. Monica, where are you joining us from again? Remind us.
I'm actually in the USA. I'm in Ohio.
That's what I thought. We could hear a little bit of the accent there. So we just want to say how thrilled you are that you joined us, even though it was, remotely and while you were working out. It's awesome.
I like my American clients.
But
okay, I like them.
All right.
Thank you so much once again.
Any final questions or comments here today as we're wrapping up? I know lunch hour is just around the corner, and this presentation has given us lots of food for thought. There's the link tree again in the Zoom chat. And yes, I think it was Lynn that asked what's coming up next. So I dropped a note in there with our upcoming workshops. There's a virtual cafe 2 weeks from today. It's going to be probably we're really ramping down for the summer months. Okay. Because for a couple of reasons, but one is that it's just it's a slower time. So there are going to be some virtual cafes over the summer months, which allow us to connect. And the one on the 23rd, I believe it is around this issue of accountability and talking about how we can be accountable. What are some tips and tools that we have for each other? And again, it's an interactive session. So that's going to be coming up next. I hope you can join us. Final questions one more time I will ask.
And you can always follow up with me. The one thing I do ask, and it's something everyone should do when they follow up, is mention to a person where you met them. Especially since I go around to different organizations. My memory ain't that great.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
You need to help me out, guys. You need to say, hey, I met you through this.
Agree.
Then it helps click things in, and then it gives us something to talk about as well. It's that bridge, right? And
fantastic. Well, thank you to everyone who's joined us today. You have my email there, or you can always respond on Eventbrite if you absolutely can't find any other place to find us. And yeah, stay in touch. We'd love to connect with you in the future. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.